Hey friends, today we're going to be doing the FizzBuzz challenge. It's an easier challenge, but I'm just starting to do these programming videos, so I wanted to get my feet wet. I haven't done any preparation for this other than copying down the challenge into a text file, and the challenge reads, write a program that prints the numbers 1 to 100, but for multiples of 3, print Fizz instead of the number, and for multiples of 5, print Buzz. For numbers which are multiples of both 3 and 5, print FizzBuzz. Okay, so just to get going here, I'm going to create a fizzbuzz.py file on my desktop, and I'm going to make a main function for us to play around in. It's going to say main, and because we're in Python, I'm going to put one of these guys down here. And this says that we should only run the main function if we're running the file directly and not like in an import or something. So if that worked out well, I should get main printed when I run the file. Alright, so I like to break down these challenges, and as small as this challenge is, I'm still going to break it up into parts. Okay, write a program that prints the numbers 1 to 100, and stop. Let's do that. Okay, so in Python, you can get a range of numbers using the range function, and if you read about that, like an example is given here. Range 4 returns 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now if you notice, the challenge said we're going to print numbers 1 to 100, and range defaults is starting with 0. So I think what we're going to do is pass 1 to 100 into range. So why don't we see what we get here. I'm going to do range in a for loop. So for n in range, I said 1 to 100, print n. If I run that, okay, I get up to 99. Did I start with 1? I started with 1, so I think I need to pass in 101. So we're going to change that here. And if I run this, good. We start with 1. And will that work? Good. We end with 100. Okay, so first part of the challenge. Check. We printed all numbers 1 to 100. And okay, so go back to my text file. It says, but for multiples of 3, print Fizz instead of the number. Okay, so the I'm going to do this in IPython here. In Python, there is an operator called the modulus, and I think that's going to come in handy here. The modulus is a percent sign, and what it does is it kind of does. If you remember when you did division in like early grade school, and you couldn't do decimals, so instead you did remainders. The modulus does the division and then gets the remainder. So if I do 3 modulus 2, 2 goes into 3 one time and there's a remainder of 1. Or if I do, let's say, 5, no, how about a bigger number? Let's do 7 modulus 3. 7 divided by 3 in grade school would be 2, remainder 1. So modulus will get the 1. So saying a number is divisible by 3 is like saying the modulus of that number 3 is equal to 0. So like 3 modulus 3 is equal to 0. So we know that number is divisible by 3. So if we go back to our challenge, when it says we're going to, instead of printing multiples of 3, we're going to print the word Fizz. Obviously we're going to have to put in some kind of check that says if the number is divisible by 3, aka if the number modulus 3 is equal to 0, we're going to print the word Fizz. So I'm going to go back and do our main function here, and I'm going to add an if, or more specifically, if n, our number modulus 3, is 0, we're going to print Fizz. And then otherwise we're just going to print the number, so I'm going to add an else, print Buzz. There we go. Nope, I'm still in IPython. If we run that file, okay, so here we go. So we got some more numbers now. Oh, what did I do? I don't know I'm supposed to print Buzz here. The challenge said if the number isn't divisible by 3, we just print the number, or in our case n. So if I run that file, there we go. So now we get what we want. For example, 3 is divisible by 3, we get Fizz. Same for 6, same for 9, same for 12, and all the way up to 100. You can take my word for it. Okay, back to the challenge. Where are we? And for the multiples of 5, print buzz. Great, so we're going to do the same thing, so correctly this time, and we're going to add another case, an else if, or in Python that would be an elif, n modulus 5 is 0. We're going to print buzz. There we go. Okay, so an example of that would be 5, obviously, and 10, and things like that. So if I run that, great. So instead of 5, we get buzz. Instead of 10, we get buzz. Instead of 15, we get fizz? Wait, what? Oh, I see. Okay, we'll get to that later. So 15 is one that's divisible by both 3 and 5, which takes us to the next part of the challenge. It says, for numbers which are multiples of both 3 and 5, print FizzBuzz. So, we're going to have to add another else if. Else if n modulus 3 is 0 and n modulus 5 is 0. Print FizzBuzz. So if we run this again, we should see what we get now is it's still fizz. What happened here? Oh, I see. Okay, so we're going to want to move this condition to the top because what's happening for 15 is it's probably checking this condition and saying, oh, it's true, so let's just print fizz and then just bail out of here. So if we go back to, yep, so that printed fizz. So I'm betting that's what happened. Okay, so we can just move this to the top. So I'm going to turn that into an if statement. And then you're going to be an elif statement. Okay, so this is the rarest condition that'll check first. Get that over with. And then we do 3 and 5. So if we run that again, there we go. So 15, we get FizzBuzz. And what's the next one? 30, we get FizzBuzz. So, according to the challenge, we are done. But, I mean, I feel like we could make this a little bit better. This is certainly the simplest way to do things, but so testing is kind of a big deal, and what I don't like about this off the bat is that it's kind of difficult to test. I mean, if I were a software developer going into this for the first time and it were a much bigger deal, I would like to see some tests around it, and right now it's just kind of a function that runs. And so why don't we convert this to a function that's testable, and instead of printing, how about we make it return? So I'm going to make a FizzBuzz function, and we're going to move all this here. Let's actually cut that. Whoops. And we're going to stick that here. And how about instead of printing, great. And then, oh, we can also get rid of all these parentheses. Done. Okay, so now instead of printing FizzBuzz or the number, it's just going to return it. So that way in main, we can actually, why don't we pass in the number? That would be pretty sweet, huh? That would be even more testable. And that way, the number isn't hard-coded for, so if for some reason they wanted to only iterate like, I don't know, like 80 times, or if they wanted to do 10,000 times, or even 2 times, they could just specify that here in main. So I like to kind of leave my main function as the, make it as small as possible. Like this is where I sort of hook into the program, and then I leave the meat of the program for all other functions. So I think that's a pretty good practice. So that's going to be fizz n, and oh yeah, we're also obviously going to want to print the number. So this is going to call FizzBuzz with whatever n, and FizzBuzz is going to return either FizzBuzz, FizzBuzz, or just n. Let's make sure we didn't break anything. So if I run that, beautiful. 1, 2, fizz, 4, buzz, fizz, 7, 8, fizz, buzz, 11, fizz, and FizzBuzz. Good. Okay, and oh, I did promise that we would write a test, so why don't we do that? So now that FizzBuzz has been pulled out into its own function, and it's not printing anything, now it's just returning something. We got simple input and output. That should be an absolute doll to test. So I'm going to make a test FizzBuzz.py file, and we're going to import the standard unit test library. And because it's a unit test, we're going to put one of these dudes at the bottom. There we go. We're going to call unit test.main. And then test. Why don't we just call it FizzBuzz test case? That's going to inherit from unit test.test case. And I don't think we should need any setup. We are going to need our FizzBuzz function, so I'm going to say from FizzBuzz import FizzBuzz. We kind of named our module and method a little redundantly, but you know, what are you going to do? We can address that later if the boss man cracks down on us. Alright, so why don't we first just test a regular number? So test regular, well, regular is not very descriptive. I'm going to say test should return number. That should work. So these test methods usually begin with the word test. Most test runners look for that kind of thing. So in this test, we're going to assert that if we pass it a number that's not divisible by 3 nor 5, it should just return the number. So here we go. So I like to do my test like this. I like to break it down by actual and expected. The actual number, when we give the FizzBuzz, why don't we say the number 2? We expect it to be 2, right? Because that's just going to return the number. It's not divisible by 3 nor 5. And then as part of the test, we can assert equal, actual, expected. All right, so if I run that, what did I call it? Python test FizzBuzz. There we go. Ran one test. Okay, so now let's try the condition where you pass in a number divisible by just 3. So I'm going to do test should, how about test divisible by 3. Okay, and then my actual amount, or my actual value, if I pass in 3, will get called there. And we expect it to be Fizz, right? And then as part of the test, we can do actual expected. We run that, golden, 2 tests. All right, last one, test divisible by 5. I'm going to grab this guy. So if I pass in 5, I should get the word buzz back. And you know, I'm feeling kind of cocky, so why don't we just write the last test while we're at it and then run them all at once. Right? Because this is probably going to work out. Bugs never happen. So I'm going to say by 3 and 5. Getting really creative in our method names, but that's okay. I mean, Python should be clearly documented. Why don't we try a crazy one? What's a really high number that's divisible by 3 and 5? Oh, now I'm under the gun. I can't remember. let's just do 15. I'm good at that one. So that should return FizzBuzz. Okay, so we're going to run 2 tests now. And there you have it. Ran 4 tests. Okay, so what did we learn? The FizzBuzz challenge, it's kind of uninteresting, but it's a good way if you're learning a new language and you want to just kind of like whet your appetite for it. It exercises the basics. You got a little bit of math. You got some you got the modulus. You should probably learn to do that in any language you're learning. And we also pulled it out into a unit test, so we didn't hard code the number here. And there you go. So I think this challenge is done. Thanks for watching. I hope that was interesting, and I'm going to do more of these. Keep it real.